It was the last of the iconic strikes. The miners' action 36 years ago resisted plans to close 20 pits, but it represented so much more. In echoes of Upper Clyde shipbuilders over a decade earlier, it was about the right to work. For the government, it was about cutting the enemy within down to size.
Good evening. So we're going to have a little retrospective look at the Frontline in 1984, what it was like as a young police officer that was throwing into the mix. So before we start, good evening, Adam and Julie. Andrew, nice to see you. I've been working all day on content for the other channel for Real Review UK. Yes, and working does mean watching a 3 hour long film with snacks. But yes, that's work because I've been doing a review for it. In fact, I've actually filmed the review. I just need to edit it now and put in the little extra bits that make it watching. Ben's had a little sneak peek of some of the comments I've made. I think here. So that should be out tomorrow. So look forward to that. If you do, you get it on the Real Review UK. It's June Part 2. So that's, if you haven't seen the first version of June, well, if you haven't seen the first part of the movie, you really need to see that before you look at Part 2. But I'm not giving away spoilers in the review much, and I'm putting up a spoiler zone alert before I do give the spoilers at the end. So there'll be no problem. So there we go. So good day, Ray. Nice to see you. How you doing? So let's go back to 1984. In fact, let's go back to 1983 because that's when I joined the police. I was a young and naive Scotsman who had get fed up waiting to join the RAF because I wanted to fly fast jets. I really wanted to be a racing driver. So I applied for the RAF, fly fast jets, and then I applied for the police as well, just as a backup plan. And unfortunately, the police took me. So I thought, oh well, I'll do that. And I never reapplied for it. But the first time round, what happened was I'd applied for both of them and they both rejected me because I was too young, they said, and didn't have enough life experience because I was only like 18 or something like that. So they said, give it a year or so and then apply again. And I did, and I applied this time for the police first. And they took me straight away, and I thought, oh, well, okay, I'll not bother applying for the RAF, and probably one of my biggest regrets. But, you know, that's just how things happen. Is my audio loud enough? Is it okay? I'm sorry to ask, but I seem to be having strange things going on with the audio. I might have to revisit it, but probably not. So that was that. I ended up in the police in 83. Yeah, it is quite expensive being a racing driver because I'd got a taste of it when we lived in Hong Kong because everything was a lot cheaper there. In fact, we lived like kings out there, even though my dad was only a petty officer in the Royal Navy. But it was quite interesting. I got to race karts. In fact, I actually finished second in the 8th International Karting Prix of Hong Kong. That was quite cool. Anyway, I joined the police in 83 and I was in my first year of, well, we do 2 years probation in Scotland. I used to, I don't know what they do now. So it was in the first year that the miners' strike started. And obviously all police get thrown into that because it was a big strike. I mean, it was the biggest strike we'd ever seen. And Arthur Scargill and Mick McGahey and all that were stirring up all the unions. And they blockaded the port at Hunterston. Now I worked in Irvine at that point, and I was stationed there. And Hunterston was just up the road. So we get drafted up to Hunterston. So we had to turn up every morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, get in the police vans, drive up to Hunterston. And then we would spend 12 hours up there before they would bring us back down the road. We then go home, have something to eat, go to sleep, get up. So really, it was pretty crap because you spent you didn't have any social life or anything, because for the month or so, maybe 6 weeks that we were doing this, it was just constant. Rest days were cancelled, no holidays, nothing. I was pretty naive. I wasn't really into politics in a big way. I didn't analyse things. I didn't really question stuff. It's completely different now. Question everything. But I thought, well, we'll just do as we told, and that's what it did. We just did as we were told. We went out there and we stood on the hill and watched the miners come and go. There would be maybe 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 20, 30, 40 pickets. And then one day buses started arriving. They were full of miners. And of course, there's only like 30 or 40 of us. And we're like that. There's an awful lot of miners here today. And they start getting more and more and more. And of course, the bosses are on the radio and all that. And then, every time a bus comes around the corner and drives by, the miners would cheer, because that was another busload of miners that were coming. They were obviously going to make a big stand. And it was Yule and Dodds was the company, and they used to transport the coal out of the port and over to, I think it was going to Ravenscraig for the steelworks. So, buses kept arriving, more and more miners. And then buses kept arriving and the miners were cheering, but they looked carefully at the buses. This time weren't miners. They were full of police. And what happened then was this crocodile of police started marching round the corner, and we're standing there, and the miners are going, "That's not the police. The police can't march." So this crocodile of police came marching round the corner, and it just kept coming and coming and coming. And we ended up, there must have been 300-400 cops there, and easily as many, if not more, miners. And then the horse branch arrived, and the horses come out, and they come round the corner, and you got 3 or 4 horses on each side of the road, and they're patrolling up and down. And and the thing is, it was kind of the summer, so it was warm, wasn't raining for a change. It was quite pleasant, and we had a bit of banter with the miners. We'd been there for like a week or whatever. And even though there was loads and loads of new miners and there was loads of us, we still had a bit of banter, and it was nothing unfriendly. And we'd all been given instructions, no batons to be drawn, and to try and not arrest anyone, because all we wanted to do was keep the lorries going in and out. We didn't want to arrest people, because every time you arrest people, you lose 2 cops. Because you arrest one guy, you need 2 cops to take him back to the staging area where they'd then be put in a van. And then you would go back to the front line, but you're only there for, you're away for whatever it takes, 20 minutes, half an hour, to get the guy across, get his details, get him processed, and then get back. So you're losing 2 cops for every 1 miner you arrest. So the bosses didn't want you arresting people, just wanted you to stop them getting onto the road and keep the trucks running. But it got to the point where the miners then started charging the police lines, and the inspector that was, our inspector, no batons, just keep it nice and friendly, link arms and all that. And we didn't have riot gear in those days. We didn't do that kind of thing. 84. Still wearing our hats, wearing our ties and white shirts with our battle dress tunics. And the only thing we did was put gloves on, basically. So anyway, that inspector has said, try and keep it friendly, no batons and everything. And the next time I saw him, he was rolling down the hill and had a miner by the cheek. He had inserted his thumb into the guy's mouth and was holding him by the cheek as they rolled down the hill together. So yeah, he was keeping it nice and friendly. So that was quite fun. So yeah, I mean, I arrested a miner as well. We packed him away back to the van, and the whole thing was, it wasn't that bad. Nobody really got terribly injured or anything. You get the odd scuffle, the odd the odd bop, but nothing really that bad. It was fairly low key and fairly friendly, and it was a bit of a game in some respects. And as a 20, a young 20 something cop, it was all good fun to me. And I didn't really think about the fact that these grizzled miners, some of them, late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, some of them, they were fighting for their jobs, you know. I mean, we were doing our job, but they were fighting for their jobs. And I think that it didn't really come home until much, much later. And I think all the miners actually would eventually received pardons for being convicted of basically a breach of the peace. So I think that's all been sorted out now. But at the time, some of them got some really big fines, like 250 quid and things like that. And there was some close calls, like one of the cops fell in front of a lorry after he'd been pushed, and it was pretty close to actually getting squished, but luckily he didn't. So it was all quite low key. It was quite well behaved. It was quite civilized as far as protests go. I mean, you look at what goes on these days and the way that the police behave, and you guys have been there. You've been there at protests and things like that, and some of your protests have been very civilized. They've been a day out in some respects, but some of the protests we're getting now seem to be much more charged, loaded with kind of different. It's like it's a complete. It's antithetical to the British way. I think this isn't the British way. Some of the protests we're getting now, and I may well be wrong. I might be putting words into people's mouths that don't belong there. But I think we've lost. I think we've lost a lot of how we used to be and how we used to deal with things. And as I've got more aware of what's going on in the world and the changes and things that happen, I've become very critical of government, in particular, the police, and the police have been. It's been very difficult because I worked with the police very closely. Even after I'd left the police, I spent 9 years basically working as an IT contractor for them. And I was still meeting some of the guys that I used to work with and some of the guys I knew. And they look lost now in the modern police. Modern police force doesn't do things the way that we used to do things. They don't talk to people anymore. Everybody's isolated, Nobody walks the beat. Even the division, the people that normally patrol a beat, walks the beat anymore. You never see. I've been in Glasgow the last I would say the last 5 or 6 years I've been out in Glasgow. I've never seen a cop walking the beat anymore. Never. Just don't see them. You see, sometimes you see those not community support officers. You see those people with the blue vests on, basically council wallas, tourist information or whatever they are. But you don't see cops walking the beat anymore, and that to me is a big loss. But it's how do you know what's going on if you're not dealing with people? You're only attending to calls. You don't have any clue what's going on in your area. You don't have any contact with the people. And most cops don't live where they work these days, so you don't know anything that's going on at all. You just basically end up as going round to calls and logging them and then going to the next one. And the Scottish Government have said that there's 15,000 cases that they're not going to investigate every year now because they're low value. They're just not going to bother. They're not even going to attempt to investigate them. They'll come round, take a report, and then say, that's it, it's done, finished. We're not doing anything about it. And it's like the thin end of the wedge, isn't it? It's like, giving the criminal the little bit he needs just to get in there, and then just keep making it wider and wider. And I think the whole thing's wrong. It just doesn't seem to work well. So, so back to being on the front line, and it was all good fun at the time, but then when it all kicked off, I actually do get a bit frightened because when you've got 300 or 400 miners charging you, you're like, bloody hell, this is getting serious. And we've got ranks, we're in ranks with linked arms, we're maybe three deep, and they're pushing us back onto the road. And I mean, it really is quite frightening. And then I've never been so glad to see police horses because I don't like police horses. One, they're really, really big. Two, they train them to walk on top of people so they don't flinch. Horses don't like walking on soft things. So they used to train them to walk on mattresses because they would walk over people and stand on bodies and not, rear up and fall over. So that's just part of the training for a police horse, apparently. So didn't really like police horses, but the police horses come tearing down the hill and ran right across the front of the miners and broke up their charge. Which was quite exciting at the time, and we were going, yes, oof, dodged a bullet there. So yeah, it's quite an intense experience, and not something I'd really been privy to before. I mean, I'd been in large crowds before, and certainly, think Celtic Park, and if you're a Celtic supporter, you'll maybe understand or maybe not, but Celtic Park was the worst football ground to work in because it was at that point it was all basically all standing. It wasn't seated. Toilets were always overflowing and full of things. Just didn't go. They didn't go to the toilet. They'd get up. They'd come out and they'd walk into the hall and just piss up against the wall. These people were like animals, and they behaved like a mob. I I lost all respect for football fans after seeing how they behaved because I'd never really followed football and I'd never gone to football. Apart from like the England Scotland game down in Wembley when we took the goalpost. People really do. They behave like a mob, and it's tribal behaviour. And it's quite frightening the way that they get carried away. And you used to get the gangs of casuals and things, and luckily they generally fight each other, and not pick on the police, which was just as well because, to be honest, never had enough cops at these games. If you've got 50, 60, 70,000 people in a football match, nowhere near enough cops if that all kicks off and they start picking on you. One of these things. But that's the thing, and in those protests, because after the Hunterston one had kind of died down, we get sent up to Ravenscraig and we were up there in Motherwell and places like that. I never saw anyone lift a weapon, not once. Never saw a miner lift a weapon. Never saw a cop lift a weapon. Nobody lifted a weapon against each other. Dealt with human beings, and we dealt with each other properly. And sometimes we were tough and they were tough. But it was never any more than a hand or a fist. There was no weapons were. So there was a degree of respect for each other that I don't think we have anymore. I think we've lost that. And I think the police have a lot to blame for that because of the way they treat people and the way that they behave. And I don't know how we get that back. I really don't, because, well, you would have to go back to basics. And if you think about New York in the 80s, New York was a dangerous place. But when they started doing the zero tolerance and just cracking down on every crime that happened, it really did drive the criminal element out of New York to a degree, and New York became quite a safe city and quite a pleasurable city to visit. I don't know what it's like at this moment in time. I should imagine after 4 years of the Democrats, it's maybe gone back downhill again. But it really seems to be an effective way getting back to touch with people. Getting back on the side of respect for each other, mutual respect. and being fair with each other. And I think that's something that the police need to do. And that's not, it can't come from the people, that's got to come from the police. But when you're dealing with people that are wandering about with machetes and things, you really got to hammer that. You got to hammer that. You've got to really be on top of that. You can't afford to let that slack. And you can't afford to give people like that an easy ride or a light sentence. You should be they should be hammering these people and really putting them in jail for extensive periods of time. Or if they're not proper citizens, you should do what every other country in the world does, like France, Germany, America. You commit a crime, a violent crime, you get deported back to where you came from. Oh. So, where are we? Oh, Simon. Hi, Simon. Nice to see you. Split the Marches too. I still class myself as a freedom fighter. Yeah, it's just a different place, isn't it? So what have we got? We got in the chat here. Right, so Sean Fennessy's in, Simon's in, Wrestle Mechanic, good to see you. Julie, Ray, you guys. On the freedom marches, when people would shout, choose your side to the police, used to annoy me like they were going to stop. Yeah, well, I think I don't know what's going wrong in British society, and that as a cop you used to be able to use your initiative, and you could make up your own mind whether you would prosecute someone or not. But it seems to be now that nobody lets you off with anything. Nobody gives you a warning. I think it's almost like everything's full of jobs worth. Oh. I think the problem with the I know you've had a bad experience, and I think the problem ultimately lies with the courts. Courts take the side of the police, regardless in some cases, and depending on the court itself, because it never used to be like that. We lifted two guys with a car chase from Kilwinning to Ayr. It was a motorcycle chase, chased two motorcycles. And when we got the guys, they had no insurance, they had no, basically they were disqualified, no insurance, no MOT. They had drugs on them, so they got locked up, the bikes getting pounded. Went to court, and the sheriff let them off. He let them off. He just said, yeah, admonished, and just let them walk out the door. And these guys said, they had a charge sheet as long as your arms, but he basically let them off because they were ex-servicemen or something like that. I don't know what happened, but we were like that. What the hell? I mean, you lock someone up for what are genuine offences, and they walk away. So that was strange. But I think generally now the courts, especially shall we say conservative leaning towns, tend to take the word of the police over everything, whether that word is justifiable and right or not. And that's not right, because they should be carefully weighing up the evidence, especially after what we've seen happen in the last 10 years, say, because the police have slowly really. I mean, the police have always been a tool of the state, but they become more and more a tool of the state, to the point that you get Police Scotland investigating the SNP, and it's like, how long can, I mean, it's longer than a Denis Villeneuve film, How long can it take? Just sort it out. They've either done something wrong or they haven't. You don't need to keep investigating them for 3 years, you know? Oh, it's, it's water. Told not to drink. So, yeah. So that's kind of how it was in the 80s. And that's frightening to think that was 40 years ago. It's crazy. It was there was still a degree of mutual respect between us, in the protagonists and the defenders of the law. But we never saw ourselves like that. We just saw ourselves as doing a job. And my salary in 1984 was £6,700 a year, and that year I cleared over £14,000 because of the overtime. So you can imagine how much that cost the government. At least that, and that was Maggie, wasn't it? Because that's what broke the unions. That broke the NUJ, and it broke, what was it? It was NUJ, and what was it? NUM. So yeah, I think that broke the union. So there we go. Anything else you guys want to talk about? They said, I remember reading that the second in command of the miners' strike was MI5. So are you saying like one of the union ponchos was MI? It's certainly possible, because they did want to shut the mines, and they wanted to break the control of the unions. So a bit like Wapping as well. You remember when they did the newspaper strikes and all that? You know, the printer strikes. So they wanted to break they really wanted to break the control of the unions. I think, and maybe there was a degree of internal chicanery, we'd call it that, to achieve that. It's certainly possible. I wouldn't put it past anything, because you never know what the intelligence services are actually doing, because the thing is, they don't tell you. And I don't like to tell anyone, because you know, even my dad, right? Because when we went to Hong Kong, he was a petty officer in the Royal Navy. We went to Hong Kong, we flew with the RAF and all that, and we went out there and lived there for 2 years. Things changed while we were out there, because when we came back and arrived at Bryce Norton, they called him up. They called us, the family. They called him up, though, as we arrived back in Bryce Norton, by calling him Mister, not by his rank. And we get escorted out and taken out without going through customs or anything, which was really weird. And I thought, I'm a kid, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? This isn't normal, because everybody else in the plane was still in the queue, and we all got ushered away. This is a bit strange. And I had a guitar. I had a guitar that my mother had stuffed with cigarettes. I thought, are we going to get to jail because my guitar's full of cigarettes? But no, we're just going straight out and away. And I remember asking him about it later on, after he left the Navy. And he said that he had changed over while in the latter days, and he was working for Navy intelligence. And it was just a bit, but he never really spoke about it. It was just a weird thing. And I really didn't press him that much on it, because he did end up working at Petrevy for quite a few years. And that was quite interesting, because I'd been in a couple of times, and they had the maps on the walls, which were good, because you could work out where the fallout zones were, for the Russian strikes, because they had everything plotted where the Russians were going to hit, and you could see that where we lived, we were actually okay where we lived, but everything around was going to be like wiped out. Be funny. But anyway, yeah. Let's see what else we got in the chat. Uh, yeah. Cesspit of corruption, top to bottom. You're in. Well, yeah, as shown. Yeah, we know that. And his name Hamza is just. You see what he's been up to? Did you see the latest? This guy's unreal. Apparently, he donated £200,000 to some kind of centre for Islamic meditation or something, which turned out to be his relative's house. Is that not blatant? Yeah, I would say somewhere in the southern hemisphere's got to be the best bet. Really has. The Argentinian hills, yeah. I would definitely say the southern hemisphere's got to be the best bet. Either South America, probably not Australia because that's Five Eyes, so it'd probably get smacked. But yeah, South Africa or South America, the best thing. I don't know what I don't know what Ben's talking about. Oh dear. A medical emergency, perhaps. That's not so good. Yeah, times have changed. The police have gone from cigarette smuggling and guitars to much more serious crime. Oh, I wasn't a police officer when I was smuggling the cigarettes. I was a child. I was only like 13. That was before I joined the police. Oh, I mean, the police are just as bad as as bad as the general population because they're all they're all as bad as each other, aren't they? Just that bunkers in New Zealand, yeah. New Zealand's probably a New Zealand's. You don't want to build a bunker in New Zealand. You don't want to build a bunker in Hawaii because they're both seismically active. These aren't the kind of places you really want to have a bunker. You want to be somewhere like in I think the Ozarks or something like that. You want to be somewhere in the middle of America. So there we go. Right, I think that's kind of that. Is there anything else we want to talk about? Anything else that we need to touch on? What else did I want to say anything else about them? Oh, I'll tell you one story about the miners' strike. So every morning we would arrive at Irvine Police Office at 5 o'clock, and we'd all have to gather in the muster room, do your roll call, but just like Hill Street Blues, the sergeant would stand up. Anyway, you'd do the roll call and all that, and then you'd all file out to the minibuses, and we had one minibus and one Sherpa, and the minibus was a transit which held like 16 people or something like that, and Sherpa was just one of the beat vans. So it had wooden benches in the back, just two wooden benches down each side, no seat belts, no cushions, nothing. It was just a beat van with a partition between the drivers and the front seat passenger. So there was this one guy, and I'll use his name because I would imagine he'll be dead by now. But Bobby used to turn up every morning at the coos tail, as they say. He was always late, and he always ended up sitting in the back of the Sherpa. He comes in one morning, parks the car at the station, gets out and sees somebody sitting in one of the minibuses. And I'm thinking, what the hell? And I'm going, why is Bobby sitting in the minibus? And I goes in and goes, Bobby's sitting out there in the minibus. And everybody's like, yeah, he came in early. But he said just to tell the sergeant he's here because he's taking up a seat in the minibus because he says he's not travelling in the Sherpa again. We're like, oh, okay. So anyway, we're sitting there, the sergeant comes in, does the roll call. There's Nisbet. Oh, he's in the minibus, Sarge. He's ready to go. So sergeant goes, right, let's go, pile out. So we all piles out. We piles into the minibus and the Sherpas. And Bobby has to get out the minibus because he was in the wrong one. And ends up in the back of the Sherpa. ironic. So this guy, we had another guy called Jim who could sleep anywhere. This guy just he could fall asleep he fell asleep walking. I testify to that. He fell asleep walking. We were out walking the beat one night and we're walking along and I was talking to him and I said, "What do you think of that, Jim?" And there's no reply and I looks over, his eyes are shut and we're still walking. And I goes, "Jim, what you doing at that lamppost?" No response. Keeps walking. And he's sleeping. Next thing, he steps off the pavement and wakes himself up. He'd fallen asleep while walking and just kept walking. I could not believe it. So he would towards the tail end of our stuff up at Hunterston, the miners had kind of died off, and there was maybe only about half a dozen or whatever turning up. So we would be out there, and we'd get stood down early some days because everybody disappeared. So we were able to go back home early. But we're all out there one day and there's hardly any miners about. We're camped out on the hill. We're sunning ourselves because it was just lying there and Jim's falling asleep again, like he always does. So he's lying there on the hill, falling asleep. And the Sarge goes, "Right, we're stood down." So we all gets up and Jim's still sleeping. I go, should we wake him up? And Bobby goes, no, just leave him. he looks happy. Just leave him. So we all went down to the minibus, piled into the minibus, and went back to Irvine, leaving Jim lying on the hill in Hunterston, sleeping. The next morning we come in, and Jim come in. His face was like a militia beacon because he'd been lying sleeping in the sun. He was sunburnt to hell. And he just said, "You bastards." Yeah, I know the frame's not, it's because the frames are too big for the amount of, I don't have any more, I can't, if I move it, Ben, it's going to be not lined up on the right. So the frames are too big. We did ask Adam to make the frame slightly tighter, but he never bothered his ass. You know what he's like. Too busy playing with his AI. And no, we never drank while we were on duty. Never. Except on Aaron, for some reason. But that's another story altogether. But yeah, I mean, it used to happen in the old days. When you walked the beat, the publicans used to leave like a dram on the windowsill behind the pub, and that was for the cop that was walking the beat. But yeah, it did used to happen, but not in my time. It all kind of died a death by then because they used to joke about police cars in Govan had tow bars so they could put a trailer on them, and they used to race to get to pubs that had been broken into so to see who could get the most drink out before the landlord turned up. Yeah, so there was that. So there we go. I think I don't think drinking is a big problem that you think it is. What's his name, Ben? Because I think it mellows me actually. Once I've had a couple of drinks, I become more mellow. I can become quite grumpy when I've not had a drink. Anyway, such is life. So there's a few little stories for you tonight. I hope you've enjoyed this. Are we done? Anything else that you want to talk about in the chat? Any other points? Nope. Maybe have one or two before if you like. Preload. I've got a show coming up. I better preload. They're doing with the dogs. I don't know what they're doing with the dogs. They've been using police dogs to their protest. Yes, I'm looking forward to the June video as well. Be quite Let's see. Audio's current bitrate is lower than the recommended bitrate. That's a new one. I've not had that one before. I will address that for Simon wants more. More what? More stories. Oh yeah, I've got loads of stories about funny things that happened. Well, yeah. I'm thinking, what about what could we stories? There's always the did I tell you the fire story? I told you the fire story. So anyway, right, we're in Kilwinning. Ghost stories. I tell you what, I'll give you a short ghost story, right? So we're driving. I was working in Kilwinning at this point, and Kilwinning's about three or 4 miles, nearly 5 miles from Irvine. So it's just not far. They're not far apart. So two cops were stationed, three cops were stationed in Kilwinning, and all the other cops were stationed in Irvine. So we're driving into Irvine down the main drag past the maternity hospital. The maternity hospital's actually got a mortuary as well right beside the road. We're driving down it's about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning because we're going to drop off the meal or something like that. And this white thing comes out the bushes, comes out of the grounds of the hospital, and goes straight across the road in front of the car. And when I say in front of the car, it's maybe about 30 yards away or something. And it was just like a white amorphous blob, but it just went shooting across the road and into the trees on the other side. And there's a small housing estate in there. So I'm like, what the fuck was that? So it jams on the handbrake, belts round into the into the the little housing estate that this thing had disappeared into. Could not find any trace of anything. So we backtracks and saw where it had come from in the hospital, and it came out of the mortuary. That's weird. Shivers. Then there was a time. Well, there was a time we went to a sudden death in Kilwinning, and people people die, and you call the police if this guy lived on his own. Somebody found him dead in the house. Just died of old age. So we thought, what we'll do is Henry, my neighbour, he goes, let's strip him here because that means we won't need to do it at the mortuary. We won't need to bag his stuff because we can just leave it in the house. Because if you take a body in, you've got to strip the body and bag all the valuables and list them all. And then you've got to take them all and make sure that they get back to the that they belong to. But if he comes out the house without anything on him, then the stuff's just left in the house, and that makes our life a lot easier. I goes, okay, we'll do that. So anyway, the guy's bed's up against the window, and there's only a little tiny gap. And Henry squeezes round between the bed and the window, and we told the guy get his jammer, and pulls him up. And when people die, bacteria in you keeps generating gas, and this guy went, ugh. And Henry just jumped. It was like a cat. You ever seen a cat that's scared? He jumped vertically upwards and flattened himself against the wall. It was almost like he was levitating. You'd think this guy had come to life. He crapped himself. So anyway, we got him into the body bag, and what's it called? The undertaker comes up with it, puts him in the bottom of the transit and takes him back to the mortuary, and we've got to go to the mortuary to book him in. So the undertaker guy's mucking around, and Henry goes, "Come on, I'll give you a hand," and he grabs the body bag, and pulls it. And he pulls it with such force that the guy comes flying out the back of the van and ends up on the floor. And Henry's going, oh, sorry about that. And the guy, the undertaker's looking at him going, that's actually my uncle. Henry's not having a good day at this point. Oh, there you go. Oh, right. Anyway, yeah, I think we'll get more stories for you. I do have quite a few, I guess. I think what else we've got. We'll get more stories. I'll get more stories. Right. So, thank you very much for attending this. I think that's 45 minutes. That's long enough to leave you wanting more. Well, as always, it's been great for you.
Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave. 6 feet deep under, but my body won't decay. Cause my messages are timeless, so they'll put them on display. Oh yeah, I rap with a certainty, I have a sense of urgency. A message for eternity, for everyone internally. I had some people burning me, but now they fucking learn to see I ain't the one to fuck with. Now they looking nervously, and I don't really care what you think of me respectfully. You can kick rocks if you think you're fucking better, see. I will outwork you, turn you to an enemy. Hurt you so bad that you're gonna need some therapy. I got the motherfucking recipe. I've been cooking up hits, I'ma leave a legacy. You'll be looking small when you're standing right next to me. I'm 5'10", bitch, but I'm 10 feet next to me. I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yeah, I'ma do it my way. I can't contain it, I'm coming out with a statement. You really changed, man, all your music and arrangement. You don't know shit, shut your mouth, you can save it. I'm the same dude that got his come up from the basement. 100 songs, 100 weeks, didn't change it. Experiments, development, intelligence, and patience. I'll do it all again, cause I never feel complacent. Let's keep the good vibes, positivity's contagious. I'm never looking back, cause I made a life that's passionate. A college graduate suppressing all his talents, yeah. He found a way to go and change, become an advocate. For taking control of your life, go out and battle. And you think you have a dream, then act on it. Get after it, get out your head and fucking capture it. You got one life to master it. Don't give up on your future, we all start losers. We're all late bloomers, gotta struggle through the sewer. What you say, yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build